What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. It's time for my 5 takeaways from Week 11 of the 2022 college football season. I told all of you a couple of weeks ago, as we were heading into the month of November, that it was about to get crazy. That everything you thought you knew about this season and how it was going to go, yeah, just forget it, because we were going to see chaos. And it seemed like things were going a certain way. Everyone, including myself, felt like, all right, this is what the playoff's going to look like. This is how the season's going to go. And just forget it, because it's not going to go that way. Chaos is going to happen, and we've already seen that. Last week, of course, we saw Clemson get upset by Notre Dame. We saw Alabama lose to LSU. And this week, it was really about the Pac12. That's where things got crazy this week. There were other upsets as well, but the two big ones, of course, in the Pac12. And now that means USC is the Pac12's last hope for the college football playoff. They are the only team that could possibly make it, and I think they're going to need a good bit of help just to make it. They do have some big games coming up that they're going to give them an opportunity to continue to build their resume and possibly get into that top 4. But like I said, I think they're going to need some help. But how about Washington upsetting Oregon? Huge upset there. It was a rivalry. I think a lot of people expected this game to be close. It was on my upset alert video last week. But man, I tell you what, the decision to go for it on 4th down by Dan Lanning, that really cost them this game. I mean, you set Washington up pretty much in field goal range, pretty much gave the game away, and that was a terrible decision. Oregon had their opportunities in this game. UCLA had their opportunities, and they lose to Arizona. That's really a bigger upset. Arizona, they've been playing better this year. They're not as bad as they were last year. That was still a pretty big shock, but yeah, if you just look at the big picture here in the Pac-12, USC's it. That's the only team left that could possibly make it, as now Oregon and UCLA have been eliminated. Let's go to number 2. Speaking of the playoff, Clemson, they're not dead just yet. How about the bounce back against Louisville here? And look at what they have in front of them. You look at the game against Notre Dame. That was a tough one. Yeah, sure. But you look at what they have in front of them. Look at North Carolina. We're going to talk about North Carolina in a second. But that has a chance to be a top 10, top 12 team. If North Carolina can continue to win, it's going to be interesting to see where they're ranked this week. They could shoot up ahead of Oregon, ahead of UCLA. They could be up there near the top 10. That could be a huge, huge game for Clemson to build to their resume. So while it looked like this team was done, an opportunity to knock off potentially a top 10 team, win your conference championship, only with one loss on the road against a Notre Dame team that definitely has played better as the season has gone on. And let's say Notre Dame upsets USC. If that'll be an upset, I don't know what the spread will be in that game. But let's say Notre Dame finishes 9-3. Clemson is still alive in this thing. They're going to need some help. They probably need Notre Dame to win out. They need North Carolina not to get upset. That's going to help their resume. And if they can win these last couple of games in the regular season, knock off North Carolina, and look good doing it, yeah, Clemson could possibly still make the college football playoff. They really bounced back in a big way. Nice win over Louisville last night. Let's go now to number 3, TCU. Well, I now believe this team can go 13-0. I've had my doubts. I knew this was a good team. Even coming into this year, I talked about how this TCU team had a chance to be a surprise team in the Big 12. I didn't expect them to be quite as good as they have been, but you look at what they've been doing. Look at the defense. They've been playing better. They played really well on defense against Texas. Remember, that one touchdown for Texas was actually a defensive touchdown. They shut them out of the end zone, made big-time plays on both sides of the ball. When they needed to run the clock out there late in the game, they were able to do it. Texas couldn't stop them. Didn't score a ton of points in this game, but the offense did what they needed to do. And you just look at this TCU team, they're really good. I mean, they're a really good team. I don't know if they could play with Georgia or Ohio State or Michigan, but maybe they can, and we won't know until we see those teams on the field. But this team absolutely can go 13-0. You look at their remaining games, winnable games. I think probably going to face Kansas State in the Big 12 championship. We'll talk about the conference races in just a second, but that'll be a tough game there. Kansas State has at times looked like a top 10 team this year. They've kind of been weird. You do look at their losses, though. They were close. So, yeah, TCU, if they can get through these last couple of games, they're going to be playing whoever they play in the Big 12 championship for a spot to go to the college football playoff. And they might have done enough now to where they could maybe still get in, even if they lose a game, possibly. Let's say they lose to Baylor on the road. But this team, they are for real. And I think they have a legitimate chance to go 13-0 and definitely have a legitimate chance to make the college football playoff. The pressure is building. Can they handle that? Against Texas, they were the underdog in this game. So they kind of had that chip on their shoulder. That's not going to be the case these last few games. So we'll see if they can handle that pressure and finish the job and make it to the college football playoff. Let's go to number 4. I mentioned North Carolina earlier. This team can go 12-1. They are in great shape right now. I really thought this was going to be their last test. I thought they might lose to Wake Forest. Figured it would be an offensive, a shootout, and it was. But they were able to get it done. They were able to make the plays. And, North Carolina's defense is not good by any means, but they have improved. If you've watched this team throughout the season, they've had their moments. They've improved some, and that offense is so explosive. Drake May, man, is he good. This North Carolina team, like I said, they can go 12-1, and I think they could beat Clemson. I'm not saying they would, but I think they can. I think that's a game that they could possibly win. So why are we not talking about North Carolina in the playoff conversation? Let's say they do go 12-1 and win the ACC. Where will they finish? I don't think they're going to finish in the top 4, but who knows? Maybe if they can keep creeping up, maybe this week they're around 10. A couple more teams lose, they get up around 7. Upset Clemson, you never know. But this North Carolina team, they're for real. They're a good team, and they've definitely surprised me this year. So let's go to number 5 now. The conference races are heating up everywhere. So I just wanted to kind of run through some of these conference races and talk about just how crazy it is, or how crazy these races are right now. We'll start with the American Conference here. Big win for UCF on the road at Tulane. You've now got a 3-way tie between UCF, Cincinnati, and Tulane. Feels like UCF, they should be in that conference championship game. Cincinnati and Tulane still have to play, which means that game will most likely determine who plays UCF in the American Championship. And I've been predicting all along that Cincinnati would get there and they would win a rematch with UCF. I don't know if I still feel that way. UCF really looked good against Tulane. But that is an interesting race there. Again, probably going to come down to Cincinnati and Tulane. You've also got SMU and Houston both at 4-2. So if we see some upsets, things could get crazy in that conference potentially. You look at the ACC, Clemson is there, North Carolina is there. They are on a collision course. And then we go to the Big 12. TCU, they're going to be there. Kansas State, if they can win out, they'll be there. They're at 5-2 in the conference. But you've got Oklahoma State, Baylor, and Texas all at 4-3 in the conference. So those teams are definitely still alive, and that'll be an interesting race there. It feels like Kansas State's in the driver's seat. They are in the driver's seat, but it's November. We've already seen some craziness. I think Kansas State's going to do it, but we'll see. That is going to be an interesting race there in the Big 12 to see who faces TCU. And then you go out to the Big 10 West. Of course, the Big 10 East will be Ohio State versus Michigan. That will determine that division. But there is now a 4-way tie in the Big 10 West between Purdue, Illinois, Iowa, and Minnesota. All of those teams are 4-3. Wisconsin's 3-4, so you can't count them out. That division is crazy. I talked about that in the preseason. I thought this division would be wide open. I thought all of these teams would be better. I mean, every single one of them, every single team, except maybe Illinois, has been worse than I thought they would be. I thought Purdue would be better. I thought Iowa would be better. I thought Minnesota would be better. I thought Wisconsin would be better. I thought Nebraska would be better. I thought Northwestern would be better. Every one of these teams have been a disappointment, really, except for Illinois. I thought they were going to finish at the bottom. They're a good chance they're not going to win this division after these back-to-back losses, but they're not going to finish at the bottom. They're going to be ahead of Nebraska and Northwestern at least. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting battle. I've said all along, I picked them in the preseason, Purdue, because of their path, because of their schedule. It still works out pretty well for them. But don't count out Iowa. Don't count out Minnesota. We're probably going to have a tie, so it'll probably come down to tiebreakers. That division, though, is wild. It's just wild. So that's a fun one there. The SEC things are over, really. LSU is clinched, Georgia is clinched, so we're going to see those two teams in the SEC championship. And then there's the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is really interesting right now. You've got USC, Oregon, and Utah all with just one conference loss. UCLA and Washington have 2 conference losses. I think all 5 of those teams are still alive. Kind of circling back here to where we started with the Pac-12. Oregon, Utah, they're going to play. You feel like the winner of that game probably gets in, unless Oregon were to win and then lose to Oregon State or something. So that game's pretty much a play-in type game. I think UCLA's got a chance. I know they just lost, but they can bounce back. They could beat USC. Then both of those teams have 2 losses. Then Washington is still in that conversation. They've got 2 losses, so that'll come down to tiebreakers. So yes, the biggest game really, Oregon and Utah. Winner of that game most likely is in the Pac-12 championship. And then if USC can win, they'll be in. But if they lose, that's when things get crazy. So that right there is just, those 2 games next week are huge in the Pac-12. Oregon, Utah, UCLA, USC. And a lot of people are going to, kind of ignore these games and be like, well, these teams aren't going to make the playoff. It's not, who cares? That's what's wrong with college football, because this stuff is exciting to me. These conference races, I love this stuff. And it's not all about the college football playoff. It is a huge accomplishment to win a conference championship, to go to a New Year's Six bowl. And again, the playoff has kind of ruined that part of college football. But me personally, I love watching these races, seeing how they play out, and just wanted to kind of run through some of them as we get to the end of the season. A lot to be decided. Some of the conferences, ACC, SEC, we already know. But a lot of these other conferences, it's going to come down to that final weekend, and that's when I think college football is at its best, when you've got meaningful games on rivalry weekend, college football playoff, sure, but also conference races on the line, and that's what we're going to get here in these final 2 weeks. It's been a great season. I think we're going to get a little bit more chaos. Which team will fall now? Who is next? As soon as I talk about TCU going undefeated, watch, they'll probably lose, because that's usually how these things work. I finally put Oregon into my top 4 into the college football playoff. They got upset. Tennessee, I picked them to win the national championship. Then they went and lost to Georgia. So I guess I kind of jinx these teams sometimes. We'll see if TCU can overcome that. But those are my takeaways from Week 11. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports College Football Channel.